Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening. If you're listening, you're on one of the major podcast platforms across the United States. We are on all of them, perhaps even all of the major podcast platforms in the world, ladies and gentlemen. Whether it's Apple or Google Podcast, whether it's Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, or iHeartRadio, we are on all of them, so please subscribe to us at Doug Billings, The Right Side with Doug Billings. And we, if you want to see, as I know you do, you want to see the glory, the majesty, and the splendor, not to mention the raw charisma of the program, head over to YouTube and search us out, The Right Side with Doug Billings. The same thing on Facebook. You can see the downloads over there as well at The Right Side with Doug Billings. If you are a fan of Twitter, Parler, and CloudHub, at Doug Billings. Ladies and gentlemen, every once in a while, this show gives me the opportunity to see hope and wonder and joy and meaning in life. The other day, we interviewed a young, up-and-coming, successful young Republican man by the name of Higgins. He told you his story. We'll have him on the program again in the future. And today, we get to speak with two more young Republican Christian men who have seen the United States take a turn that is unacceptable. Our freedom of speech is at risk. Our freedom to worship when we want to and where we want to is at risk. And the dignity, sanctity, and holiness of human life is under attack. I'm going to talk with Ryan Higgins. Ryan is one of the co-founders of a movement that's sweeping the country called the Non-Essential Peaceful Protest Movement. Ryan is connected with a lot of heavy hitters. I'm going to let him tell you about that. People you have most certainly heard about. And he's bringing forth a movement that is trying to motivate Christian voters to get out there and vote Christianity, vote Christian principles, Christian ethics and morality, the things we just mentioned: freedom of speech, freedom of worship, dignity and sanctity and holiness of human life. I'll also be joined by Jeff Jansen, who is a local Kansas City man who was moved by the message that Ryan and his group presented a couple of months ago, who is now being a local connection to the movement, the Non-Essential Peaceful Protest Movement. It's going to happen in Kansas City, Kansas, at the Hope Family Fellowship Church. We'll put the address and the information up on the screen during the interview and afterward, so make sure you watch this very short and very informative interview with Ryan Higgins and Jeff Jansen, who will tell us about the Non-Essential Peaceful Protest Movement that will happen on Sunday, November 1st. I'm honored to be one of the guest speakers at the event, and we encourage you to download the information that we'll put up on the screen, search this out, and attend. If you're a Christian, if you believe in the divine providence of God himself and how he moved his will through the founding fathers and continues to this day, you'll want to see this event. You'll want to attend this event, and you're going to listen to this interview. Right now, on The Right Side with Doug Billings, here we go. Ryan Higgins, Jeff Jansen, and the Non-Essential Peaceful Protest Movement. We'll have a chat with them right now on The Right Side with Doug Billings. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Today, we have with us Jeff Jansen and Ryan Higgins. Ryan is of the Non-Essential Peaceful Protest Movement, which is a new and large movement covering the nation, just started. We're going to talk about what it is, what does that mean, how you can participate in one of these peaceful protests that are going on across the country starting this weekend. So, Ryan and Jeff, welcome to The Right Side.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having us, Doug.
Good. Hey, Ryan, let's start with you. You're, as one of the founding members of the NEPP, the Non-Essential Peaceful Protest Movement, would you give us a description of the event? Why? How did it start? What's its purpose?
Sure. So if we go back just about 30 days ago, a good friend of mine named Kirk Cameron, he's an actor in the secular and the Christian side of things. He and I were talking, and we birthed an event that we called Non-Essential. Non-Essential is a live event that we hosted from Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills in California, at a guy named Pastor Jack Hibbs Church. And we had that just this last Sunday on October 18th. And it was myself, it was Kirk, it was Charlie Kirk, it was Dinesh D'Souza, we had Rob McCoy, Jack Hibbs, Sissy Graham Lynch, Danny Goki, David Harris Jr. It's one of the first times a lot of us have been live in a huge room with a lot of people since COVID hit, back obviously earlier this year. And we had about 6,000 people show up, and had to turn away a few people. But that event, Non-Essential, really just stemmed around the idea that the government's telling me my faith is non-essential, my right to worship is non-essential, our police are non-essential, life in the womb is non-essential, and we could go on. And we really were just fed up. So it's not an event that I owned or Kirk owned or any one of those people owned. We all just kind of hopped on the phone and said, listen, we got to do something. We want to do something big. The last event I did was in April. It was called Hope Rising. We had almost 20 million people watch this event live online, and we raised a ton of money for Samaritan's Purse. So we wanted to replicate that. And we're on track to hit that same mark between now and the election. We're about 8 or 9 million right now that have seen it, and we're continuing to push it through social media. So that's the main non-essential event, which is still can be found at nonessential.live. But where Jeff and I got connected is for the non-essential peaceful protest. So at the end of that event, what we asked everybody watching to do is, if you feel like your faith's under attack, if you feel like Christianity in America is being looked down upon, and safety and protection of our families is something that's being frowned upon by the government, then do something about it. First and foremost, the least you can do is vote. And secondly, we ask people to step up in the communities all around the nation and hold what we call non-essential peaceful protests. And to our surprise, we thought maybe we'd get a couple hundred people sign up. And to date, I think we've had a little over 1,500 people sign up to hold these peaceful protests, which is going to happen this weekend all across the United States. So that's kind of where Jeff came in. Jeff was one of the kind leaders in his community who said, you know what, I can't sit still. I can't sit by. I got to do something. And Jeff stood up and answered the call.
Wow, what a story! That's God at work, I think, in a country that was founded with the entire principle of divine providence and God's active hand involved in the formation of our republic. It's refreshing for me to see, people like you guys, and I'm probably on the older end of the spectrum. I'm the last end of the baby boomer generation, but to see young men, to see young people organize these kinds of events because of the persecution that we've been under in this country for decades, really, but it's come to life clearly in the last few years. So I appreciate that, Ryan, and I appreciate very much and sincerely your efforts, along with all of those people that you mentioned. Clearly a lot of big names and a lot of well-known people involved in that group. So Jeff, what have you got organized here? This show is based in Kansas City, but we have a national reach. Where is your community? Where is this all going to happen in Kansas City? I'm clearly interested in that perspective. What's going on with your involvement?
All right. So as far as the where, the church that is hosting my church and my family's church it's Hope Family Fellowship, and it's in Wyandotte County, and we are. So a little bit of my background is when COVID hit and everything the world went crazy. Everybody started talking about death, and everybody's going to die, and just everything went haywire. The world was just thriving on fear, and that was all the media was pumping out. We immediately started seeing through that. Even if this is the real deal, the worst way to approach it is with fear, and the best way to approach it is with hope, is with pulling together, with finding hope. And what better way to do that except with in our faith? So I was at a place myself of just a passive relationship with the Lord. I went to church, but I wasn't really growing. I wasn't really getting fed. I wasn't, bringing myself to be fed. I was, life was good. America was great. Everything was perfect. We had plenty of money. We were good, and so I was comfortable. And then COVID hit, and politically, I'd never been involved really in politics. I'd always voted, but never really involved beyond that. Just kind of passive. I'll vote and let them do the work for me. Somebody else will take care of it,
Yep.
So COVID hits, and absolutely haywire. Realize it ultimately is spiritual, ultimately, but being driven politically. And partisan parties aside, it doesn't really matter. The parties have taken sides. Ultimately, it feels, but it's become a very political thing.
I get a sense that the organization, the Non-Essential Peaceful Protest, really is simply about expressions of faith that are being squashed, the First Amendment rights with regards to faith, the value of human life and human dignity, and so forth. And really, that transcends politics in a way. That's our. I mean, at our core. I mean, I'm a person who believes that at our core, human beings, life is sacred at all levels, and it sounds as if the organization that you guys and the efforts that you've all put together is trying to simply, perhaps not get totally political, but it's just saying, look, we have a right to worship our God, to worship and believe in the life that is holy to us and sacred to us. And in the meantime, look, we have liquor stores and abortion clinics that are left open, but we can't go to church, right? Isn't that part of the frustration and maybe part of the impetus of how this all began?
Right. Yeah. The non-essential churches and small businesses have been told that they are non-essential, which,
right.
all things, the church, the body of Christ should, in my mind, be the most essential.
Yeah.
But then, of course, money, all the finances, money have gone to the big corporations away from small mom and pop businesses. And that is just not how America was meant to be.
So the event this weekend, it's at Hope Family Fellowship. I've got it here at 2420 South 53rd Lane in Kansas City, Kansas. I'll put this up on the show so people can see it, and I'll put links up to your website and so forth. I think it's an honorable event and undertaking that you both have endeavored upon, and I appreciate it. I know there's going to be a number of speakers. I was invited. Thank you, and very honored to be asked to be a speaker at the event. I'm happy to do it. Ryan, again, your thoughts. Where will this go after this weekend? Ultimately, is it more? What's important to you? Is it a spiritual reawakening for the people? Is it a call to vote for the traditional family values that we have? What's at stake here, and what's the ultimate purpose? What will happen after this weekend, in your views? What would happen?
Yeah, great question. So ultimately, the goal of everything that we're doing is to impact the Christian voter to vote. So I've been in faith and politics at that intersection for the last 15 years. I started with W's second run in 2004 and worked on the last 5 presidential campaigns. I've been involved. I've seen the good, the bad of it. I was Dr. Carson's national director for faith engagement, so I traveled with him for his entire presidential run. So I've seen it all, from presidential Secret Service motorcades to, passing out flyers for W in 2004 when I was a poor college kid. And I will say the passion that drives everything that I've done with my company, with all the events, legislation, lobbying, campaigning, all that stuff, really comes down to one thing, and it's a deep-seated frustration in my heart with the apathetic Christian voter. I know Jeff knows, but your listeners may not quite realize that in 2016, at least 40 million Christians chose to stay home on election day. It was a little too warm, it was a little rainy, or whatever the reason was. They said, you know what, I'm going to sit this one out. On top of that, 15 million evangelicals, which is a little bit tighter of a segment in politics, it's 15 million evangelicals voted for pro-choice candidates across the tickets. So you kind of run into two issues. You have the issue of voters are apathetic. They're not showing up for whatever reason. And it's a whole different podcast to talk about why Christians aren't showing up. But then you have a voter education issue. How can you as a Christian put all the other issues aside, all the policies, all the personalities aside? If you look at just the issue of life alone, how can you take your Christian principles, walk into your polling place and check them at the door and go vote for a pro-choice candidate who is, in 2016, it was more than just a pro-choice candidate. Right. Hillary was a pro-abortion candidate. She was advocating for it, not just saying it's an option. So those are the issues that are at stake. That's what Non-Essential is about. If people go to nonessential.live, it's a full 2.5-hour event that they can watch. It's still there. It's free. We don't ask for anything in return. We don't ask for your information. Literally go to nonessential.live. Watch the whole thing. If you can watch that event from some pieces from some of the best thinkers and speakers in the country when it comes to faith and politics, and at the end of that, you don't say, you know what, I can't sit this one out, then something's wrong with you. You might want to check your heart. It's a very compelling event, and that's why we did it. That's why Jeff's doing the peaceful protest. Jeff is picking up the baton where we left it off. When we all walked off stage, I wanted it to be more than just one flash in the pan where millions of people see it. I wanted Jeff and people all around the country to pick up the baton and say, I'm going to make a difference in my local community. Right.
Excellent. Well said.
Yep.
Well said. Jeff, one last plug, the date and the time of the event this weekend.
It is Sunday, November 1st, and it's 3 to 5 Central Time, our time. So
Yep. Okay.
Please come. The more the merrier. We're going to have hopefully a packed house and give a lot of hope and freedom and share love with each other. Real love.
Good. Excellent. Well said. At Hope Family Fellowship, I'll put the name of the church and the location, the directions up on the screen for the viewers at home. Gentlemen, I want to say something. And I learned a few years ago, I was actually a long couple of decades ago, actually was in the seminary studying to be a priest. And I learned that I discerned the meaning of life. And, there's been books and wise men and women, priests, prophets, and sages since the time of antiquity really have tried to wrestle with what is the meaning of life and why are we all here. My simple definition is, and I think both of you are fulfilling the meaning of life, and that is that we simply enter continually into the lives of others to make differences for the better. So I sincerely thank you both for fulfilling the meaning of life by entering continually into the lives of other people to make differences for the better with regards to these kinds of events. I sincerely mean that. And Ryan, I wish you and your team there in California all the best. Let's keep in touch, please. I would appreciate that. And Jeff, the best of luck to you and your group as well. And we appreciate you being on the program.
Wonderful. Thanks you for having us, and can't wait to see you there, Doug.
Excellent. Ryan, thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Let's stay in touch, and excited about your podcast and excited about the event this weekend. And I will say in closing, little hint, little secret, there may be a surprise guest or two at Jeff's event this weekend. So if you're planning on coming or thinking about coming, you'll probably want to make sure you're there.
Excellent. All right. We're all about surprises. Thank you, guys. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you watching The Right Side with Doug Billings. Please be sure that you subscribe to us on all of the major podcast platforms. Just choose your favorite one. We're on all of them. The Right Side with Doug Billings. And if you want to see the video version of these interviews, we're on YouTube and Facebook as well. Check us out on Twitter. We're everywhere. The Right Side with Doug Billings. Today, we've spoken with Ryan Higgins of the Non-Essential Peaceful Protest Movement and the local organizer here in the Kansas City area, Jeff Jansen. Gentlemen, again, thank you for your time. And everyone out there, remember, you have a pack of blessings on your back. Take inventory of that pack of blessings every day. God bless you all. God bless America. So long.